Hello, this is Dr. L. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about different parts of Java program, and then I will also show you how to display a message from your Java program. Okay, so let's get started. So these are the objectives that we are going to cover in this tutorial. So we'll talk about the parts of a Java program, the print and print ln methods, and then we'll also talk about commands. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you my slides, and then I will kind of switch to JGrasp to actually show you how to write the Java program. So I'm going to switch between my slides and JGrasp, so that that way it's going to help you not only learn the theory of the Java programming, but also the practical aspect of Java programming. Okay, so let's get started. So let's first talk about the parts of Java program. Now your Java program will contain classes. So it can have one or more classes, and every time whenever you write a Java program, even if it's like a very simple one, you might just have only one class, but you have to have a class in that. Now what's a class? We'll kind of go into more detail later on. I just want to kind of, this kind of an introduction to just kind of give you an idea about the different parts of the Java program. And then as we'll progress, we'll kind of go into more detail about what are the classes and what are the objects and things like that. Now there's another thing, that a class, when you will create a class, it will have a name, and the name of the file in which, so basically when you write actually the Java code, you put that, that's a source code, you save it in a file. The name of the file and the name of the class must match. So like, for example, if I have a class called simple, then it must be saved in a file called simple.java. And your class is kind of divided into two parts. So there's a header and then there's a body. Oh, so now let's look at the structure of a class. So here's kind of a very simple outline of the class. Now any line in Java which start with the slashes like this is what we call a command, and it is ignored by the by your compiler. It is just there to kind of document your code. So like, I can write a command right before my class header, so this kind of define what this particular class is going to do. So in this case, I just said this is a simple class. The next line is the header of your class. So it always starts with a public keyword, then it has a class keyword, and then there will be a name of the class. Now in this case, like, the name of my class is simple, so that's why it just says simple. So this is just the header. It starts with the public keyword, class keyword, and then the name of the class. And then your body of the class, which will include your Java code, is always going to be enclosed in those curly braces. So make sure that you always, it always starts with an opening one, and then make sure that you don't leave out your closing curly braces. Okay, so let's actually go to JGrasp and kind of create an outline of a simple class. Okay, and I'm going to actually call it you will give it a different name. So let's start my JGraph. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually close down this from the last tutorial. And by the way, whenever I will create my new classes, they will all appear in this my file browser. So I'm going to put everything in my project folder, which is located on my desktop. So this is my desktop, and then this is my project folder, and this is where all my classes will go, and all my source code and the files will be located in the same folder. Okay, so I'm going to go to file, and I'm going to say new, and then I'm going to say Java. Okay, so I'm going to, now of course, when I kind of do my commands, they're kind of optional. You can just leave that out, but it's always a good idea to kind of document your code, so that if someone else is looking at your code, they know what you are trying to do. Okay, so I'm going to say this is a example class which will demo So, I kind of said, okay, this is a sample example class which will demo displaying output from a Java program. Okay, so how do I start my class? Start with a public keyword, then my class keyword, and then of course the name. So I'm going to call it example. Now your class name are always in Java, your class names always start with the uppercase letter. Okay, and then basically Java is kind of case sensitive, and I'm going to talk about this in the next video. But just keep in mind that your class name always start with uppercase E. Okay, now I'm going to have my opening curly braces, and then I'm going to have my closing curly braces. Okay, so it's always a good idea to kind of put your closing type your closing curly braces at the same time when you start your opening one, so that you don't forget it. And in between those curly braces we'll actually write the code for our class. Okay, now I'm going to actually save this, and when I try to save this, and you will see that it will kind of suggest a name. So save, and then it's going to say, and if you kind of look over here, number one, it's going to show you the folder in which it is going to be saved, and then it will actually suggest the name, which is kind of example, which is the same as the name of your class, and it will say example.java. So Java is kind of an extension which says that this file contains the Java code. So I suggest that you don't make any changes to the name. Also, and so it will say it will give you format. So I suggest that if it you can use actually any format, but don't use the binary. You can either use the DOS if you are doing Microsoft Window, or you can just do Mac. But I suggest that just go with the DOS format, so it's easier to kind of copy it from one operating system to another operating system, and just click on the save. And then as soon as I click on the save, I see that my file appear in the file explorer, plus also displays the name of my file in the tab at the bottom. Okay, now let's see what else do I need in my class. So let's go back to our slides. Okay, so oops, okay, okay, so I got my simple class, and then one of your class in the Java program must contain this main method. Okay, so it has public, static, void, main, string, and args. So basically I suggest that you actually type it as it is. Also kind of keep in mind that the blank spaces between your tokens, you can have like one space in there, two space in there, it doesn't really matter, it's not going to make any difference. Make sure that you kind of follow, you spell everything correctly. So it starts with the public keyword, static keyword, void keyword, and this is the name of the method. So this is actually main method. And also keep in mind that your main is spelled completely in lowercase letter, because Java is case sensitive. So if I spell with an uppercase M, that will be incorrect and it will be a syntax error. In the same way, your string starts with an uppercase S, so kind of keep that in mind. And then of course there are two, so there's an opening square bracket and the closing square bracket, then there is space, and then there is another keyword called args. Okay, and then again, like, the code for the main method is going to be enclosed in those two curly braces, opening and closing. Okay, so let's go and add this to our Java program. Okay, so I'm going to put a tab. Now the tab doesn't really matter. You can actually start from here and will still work, but it's kind of easy for someone else, like if they're reading your code, to see where your main is starting. So we always kind of leave some spaces in there before we start the header for the main method. And I just suggest that just put like 3 blank spaces in there. So public keyword, then I have my class, then public, static, void, main, and in the parentheses I'm going to write string, and then I'll have my opening and closing square bracket, and then args. Okay, so let's actually kind of talk about this thing. Okay, so let's actually do one more thing. Do our braces first. Okay, so here we go. Okay, now I can have only one space in there. Normally, like we'll put one space in there, but if I can put like 4 spaces, it will still work, as long as there's one space between each of those keywords. One space, one space, one space, and then one space. Okay. Now let's say what else can we do in here. So we can actually, we are going to actually, I'm going to actually write one more thing. I'm going to put a command. This is the main method, and inside my main method, I'm going to write some statement, Java statement. Okay, so this is an output statement. Okay, so this is where I'm going to put this, and then I'm going to talk about this in kind of more detail, like what how does it really work. So it will start with system dot out dot println, and okay, so this is my Java statement, and all my Java statements are always going to end with a semicolon. Again, the system start with uppercase S, then there's a dot, and there's no space in here. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind, because if I put a space in there, that's not going to work. So system dot out dot println blank space, and this the string that is going to be displayed, or this is a message that is going to be displayed. So when I run this program in here, it's just going to display hello world in my output, and this string is always going to be enclosed in my with a double quote. Okay, and then of course there's a semicolon at the end. Okay, so let's see what else can we do. Let's look at the slides. Okay, so simple class, and then this is my Java statement. Okay, that I just showed you. Now here's some information, comments. So I'm going to actually skip this, because we already talked about this, and then I'm going to skip this, and then I'm going to skip this. Okay, now when the program runs, the Java statement within the main method will be executed. So this is the statement that I have. Now do you know what is this going to do? It's just going to display this string in the output. Actually, let's actually go and compile our program and see if it really works. Okay, so here's my program. I'm going to compile it by clicking on this compile file button, and my compilation message will be displayed in here, and I can see that my class file was created. Now if you get any error, so then you will just say like there is an error in your program, and then it will tell you what the error is. I'm going to run my program, and yep, sure, that displayed the message hello world. Okay, okay, so let's go and oops, wrong button. Okay, so let's see what else can we do. So if I kind of go back and look at my example, that's only one line that ends with a semicolon, because this is the only Java statement that I have. This is some statement which is going to do something for me, and the rest of the code is either command or like a Java framework code. So I don't have to put a semicolon in there. Okay, so now what does it really mean? What is this statement is doing, and what are the different parts of this? So in the Java, there is something called a system class, which is a part of the Java class library that we are going to use to display output to a user. Okay, so there's a system class, and in the system class there is an object called out, and then println is a method. Now if you don't know what an object is, or what the class is, or what is a method is, just don't worry about that. We're going to talk about that in more detail as we kind of go through different aspects of the Java programming. Okay, now println method is the one. So actually there are two different methods that we can use. So there's a print method and then println method, and I will talk about what's the difference between print and println in just a minute. So let's actually go and talk about that. So I mean, they kind of do the same thing. They kind of send out characters to the output device. So when I kind of look at this, what it's going to do, it's going to take this the string which is enclosed in your parenthesis and inside your double quote, and it's going to be shown on the screen, which is a standard output device. Okay, so let's see what's the difference. Now your println method is going to place a new line character at the end of whatever is being printed out. So like when I kind of look at those two statements, there are two strings that are going to be displayed. This is being printed out on two separate lines. So basically it's going to kind of display those two lines on those two strings on the two different lines. Okay, so let's actually try this. Go back to our Java JGraphs and add some more stuff in there. Okay. Okay, let's compile this because I just modified my code, so I have to compile it. Now remember, when I will click on the compile button, it's going to save it automatically, so I don't really have to worry about that. I'm going to click on that, no errors. I'm going to run it. Actually, I'm going to go to run IO, clear this out, and then I'm going to run this. So now I have actually 3 lines of code. So this is line 1, this is line 2. I don't know why I deleted this one. Okay, so let's actually kind of keep this 2 in there. Okay, so let's kind of run this again. Let's compile this. No error. Go to a run window, clear this out, and then run it. So now I have actually 3 different lines of output. So the first line is hello world. This line 1, this is line 2. Okay. Okay. So let's see what the print method is going to do. Now it's kind of similar to the println, but what it's going to do, it's going to display everything. So it's not going to put a new line character at the end. So that means if I have like multiple print statement, they are going to be displayed on the same line. So when I kind of execute those 3 statements, this is what the output will look like. This line will be printed on the same line. Now do you see anything wrong with it? And I can see that after B, my printed is displayed right after that, so there's no blank space. So if I want to make sure that there's a blank space, then either I have to put a blank space right after there or right before here, and same thing I have to do it on the other statement. So let's actually kind of try this again. So let's go back to our JGraphs, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 2 lines and copy it, and I'm going to paste them again, but I'm going to use print method in there. So I'm going to actually change this to print. Okay, now I don't really have to change this one. So basically what will happen is it's going to display this line, and right after this it's going to display the second line. Okay, so let's compile this and see what happens. So my compilation is done. So let's go back to my run, and then I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to run this, and I can see that hello world, like this line 1, this line 2 is displayed on a separate line, and but those last 2 statement, because I have a print, so it says this is line 1, and then right after this it displayed the second message, this is line 2. Now there's no blank space there, so if I want to put a blank space, I have to make sure that I put a blank space in here. So okay, let's try it again and see what happens. So go to run, clear it, and then run it, and there we go. So now same line, but now there's a blank space in there. Okay, what else can we do? Now sometime when you do output, you want to kind of you can use some special characters that are going to actually do some special thing for you when the output is displayed. So like there is a /n character, which is, so this is kind of a print, but when I do /n, it's going to kind of add a new line character in there. So let's go back and let's give it a try. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this one, I'm going to actually put a /n in there. So even though like um, even though that it's a print, but because I put a /n, it's going to actually add the new line character in that. So let's compile this again and go and run this. So clear this out. Okay, what did I do? Okay, so line 1 /n. I want to get rid of this. Okay, so compile, go to run and run it. And I can see that even though there's a I'm using the print method, but my output displayed on two different lines because I have a /n there. Now what are the other things that you can actually add in there? So what are the other special characters that you can use? So but /n is called a escape sequence, so it can represent a new line character. Now there's another similar escape sequence which is /t, which is kind of doing a tab in there. So let's actually try this one and then see what happened. Let's try a tab in there. Okay, so let's go back to our Java program, and I'm going to add I'm going to copy the same line, and then I'm going to show you what happened in this case when I put a tab in there. Okay, so I'm going to put a /t in there, and then I'm going to compile this. Okay, I'm going to go to run, clear this out, and then run it. And you can see that there is left there's some blank space in there. The reason is because I have a /tab in there, so it's going to put tab in there. Now this is going to really useful, like if I want to display something in a table. So let's actually try another example. So let's actually kind of get rid of this, and let's say name /t. Okay, let's do first /t, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to okay. So let's compile this and see what happens. Clear this out, run it, and I can see that oops. Okay, so I need to either put a /n in there. Okay, so let's try it again, so that this second statement is going to be displayed on the second line. So compile, or clear this out, and then run this, and you can see that this kind of looked like a table. So first my Joe is kind of aligned to my first, and my Doe is aligned to my last. Okay, now let's kind of briefly talk about the programming style. So has a strict syntax, but white space are ignored by the compiler. Now what's the white space? So it could be space, tab, new line, carriage return, and things like that. Okay, so let's go and look at our program and see what does it really mean. Now I can actually take this whole Java program, and actually I can write this whole thing on one single line. So I can do something like this. But think about it like this. Let's say if you see a program like this, which is kind of written on the one single line. Well, actually the only thing that doesn't work is like if you have a comment in there. Okay, so if you write everything on one single line, then it's kind of really hard for anyone to kind of read this. So let's actually look at this. Okay, so let me actually get rid of this. Okay, so you can see that all this three statement on the same line, it will actually work when I will compile it. It won't give me any errors. but the only thing is, like, if someone else is reading it, it's really hard for them to read this. Okay, so let's actually go back and kind of go and fix this. Now about the blank spaces, so okay, let's actually go and fix this too. Okay, so again, like, I'm starting my main method. I'm kind of leaving some blank spaces in there. I don't really have to. I can actually do something like this. Let me actually kind of make this window a little bit bigger. Okay, I mean, I can do something like this, but and then of course, I can also, I don't really have to leave this blank line in there. But it becomes kind of really hard for someone to read it. Okay, so let's actually go and close this. I don't want to save it again, so I'm going to click on this and then open it again. Okay, so let's fix this. And you see that now it becomes kind of really easy for someone to see that this is my this is where my class is starting, and everything which is indented, which is away from the margin, is kind of a part of my class. Same thing, this is where my main method is starting, and everything which is again indented is a part of my main method. So it's kind of really easy to see for someone, like, if they're reading your code, it's easy for them to see what's really going on, but otherwise it's not really required. Okay, so that is for the output, and then what I'm going to do, oh, there is one more thing. Let me actually show you one more thing. So in the output, what I have done is I've just shown you how to display string, but you can also kind of display numbers. So but if you want to display numbers, then you have to make sure that you don't put them in the quotation marks. So I can say system dot out dot print. So I just put the number in there, and then what it's going to do, it's going to display that number. Okay, now of course later on we'll actually talk about variables. So normally, like, you're not going to kind of put some numbers in there, but you might do some calculation, then you will display the result. Okay, so let's actually compile this and see what the output will look like. So compile, no errors, go to a run, clear this window out, and then run this. And there we go. So it says my age is 14. So you can kind of display numbers, and um, anything else that you have, any kind of data that you have in your program, you can actually display that. Okay, so that's it for this presentation, for this tutorial, and then I will see you guys in the next tutorial.